Hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, it's Deborah. And this is very impromptu. It's very spontaneous. So many of you don't realize that I'm going to be here. I've emailed all of our Flipping 50 community, but I just did it literally seconds ago. And every day I'm in our private groups for various programs, whether it's Stronger One or it's our cafe members, our client only after 50 fitness formula for women, all of those. And as I'm reviewing all those comments and the things that are coming in questions-wise behind our Facebook questions, and you're messaging me, or our Instagram, or comments on YouTube, what I'm realizing is there's some common denominators and some confusion. I'm just going to check volume here. And I want to clear them up. So spontaneously, I decided this is the best way to do it. Not to wait and schedule a nice, neat webinar masterclass, but to literally give you the information that you need right now. Sunday is a great day. Right now, I know all of us are like, I don't even know what day it is. Like every day is Sunday or every day is Monday. It all feels like it's COVID day number what. That's where we're at, and I get it. But Sunday is still a good day for planning. And so that's why I want you to have this today and want to clear up and get clear for you on what you need to be doing via exercise. So I will share a couple of options when we're done or midway through that I have open for you today. So if you're not covered, you don't know that you've got the right exercise, I will share those. So I want to let you know, I don't want anybody to be offended, and hopefully you will feel more welcome by getting those. But we're going to dive into three things here. So we're talking exercise, stress, and immune system during midlife. So really what we're talking about here is addressing your stress and the immune system, stress in your endocrine system, which is your hormonal system, and then stress and exercise, and then tying all of those together, because that's really our task right now. That is what we've been given, and we didn't even know we signed up for that committee, but that's what we need to be focusing on. So I want to dive right in. I've actually got some notes right down here, so if it looks like I'm not making direct eye contact, that's why. But I want to just do this off the cuff and then show you the illustrations, because I think for a lot of us, that will help lock it in, and what you were trying to do really comes through. The other piece of this is the placebo effect, meaning if you're already doing the right thing, or you begin doing the right thing, if you are consciously focusing on, here's why this is the right thing, here's how this is helping me, and you consciously think about that as you do it, as you go out for your walk, as you hold yourself back from running too much, then it will help you amplify the results you get. So you've got to be able to know, what do I need to do? Why is that the right thing to do? How to do it? And then be thinking about that consciously, and you will get better results. So stress in the immune system. So let's talk about this. Overtraining. What we're talking about right here is you getting into the sweet spot. It doesn't matter if you're listening and you really have not started exercise, or you are somebody who loves to exercise and you would be guilty of overtraining. You'd love to go and exercise and work out all day, every day. And if you don't, you feel tense, you can't relax. That's a problem right there, an immune problem, okay? But so is this. Not exercising at all, not exercising enough. What we want, stepping on dogs back here, what we want is to be here, somewhere between too little and too much, and be in a sweet spot. But I want to break this concept up that many of us have, that the sweet spot is moderate exercise. You've got to throw that term away. So moderate exercises, you're going to realize we have to be careful with. And the interpretation may be the problem. So if you say moderate exercise, I think, uh-oh, she doesn't get it. And you may mean exactly what I want you to mean, but not be using the right term. So we just need to be sure we're on the same page. It's like two people seeing the color blue. I see this as turquoise, azure. You may see it as something else, but we've got to make sure we're just talking the same talk. So if you are overtraining, and it's relative to you, so for someone, overtraining might be going out for a walk for 45 minutes right now, because if you've been not doing anything, 10 or 20 minutes is a much better way to go. Start with shorter, more frequent bouts. So when I say too much, you've got to be thinking about you. What's too much? And here are signs it's too much, whatever you're doing. That you either cannot sleep well, you're waking up a lot. All you want to do is sleep is another one. You could go to sleep after a workout. You sit down in a chair in the evening, you fall asleep. You've got the TV on, but you fall asleep. You know, if it's too early for you, something's wrong, right? We've got to figure out, we've got to get you sleeping when sleeping is correct, right? So it's between 9 and 6 or something that's much more reasonable, and then you're not exhausted the rest of the day. You have plenty of energy. So you've got signs your digestive system may be off if you're doing too much exercise. You're stressed and you cannot unwind. You have a monkey mind going on. So there are a lot of ways that you can look at and know, okay, I'm doing too much for me. Aches, pains, sore after exercise immediately and or for the next 24 to 48 hours. You know, a lot of those right now you got to tune into. Even those of us that like to work hard, love to exercise and train, right now is not that time. This is not the time to be training and reaching and overreaching. Those are all things that are appropriate in the right moment we're in, but that is when you can sit down and truly relax and you don't have this kind of cloud hanging over the world of uncertainty and not knowing what's happening, and when you need to have extra space to buffer your immune system. So overtraining is not the option. It's not more activity, it's not harder activity, and it certainly is not more and harder activity. It's not even more middle range. So when I say sweet spot, this does not mean moderate exercise, right? And moderate exercise will cause a problem. So some evidence that we know that elite athletes, when they're overstressed, when their body is simply under some kind of stress, whether it's we expose them to extreme cold and then continue to have them exercise at a level that they can handle, proven that they can handle, or we put them at extreme altitude with less oxygen available to them, very conditioned athletes will still have problems. So whether it's extreme cold, because your body has to fight another factor, it's altitude, less oxygen available to you, or a stressor like COVID-19 that we can't see, we can't feel, we don't need to put a jacket on, maybe a mask, but it's there and we're all dealing with it. So subliminally, it's kind of all there. We're all looking for that to lift. So there's also competitive stress that we know athletes are in it. They're actually tapering and not doing as much, but when they get into a competitive environment, they also have depleted immune systems. Stressful times is the last one. That right now is what we're all dealing with, and we may not be extreme or elite athletes or having been trained, but we have to watch out for that. So stress and the immune system don't go well together, right? So if you're under stress, whether it's physical stress like overtraining, too much training, too little training is also not a good thing. Under eating, so malnourished, you don't have enough micronutrients because you're eating processed foods, you're eating sugar, maybe alcohol, too much caffeine, you're not absorbing what you're getting. Those can be problematic as well. And we've got to be looking at the mental stresses as well as the physical stresses we have right now. So any of those, all of those could suppress your immune system. So we want to be on top of them. So step 2, let's look at stress in the endocrine system. Okay, so I'm gonna take a pause here. And let's look at step 2, stress in the endocrine system. So negative effects of cortisol right here for you. So when I say endocrine system, you should say hormones, that's me, right? Because yes, you've been affected your entire life. Right? And for women, though, we got more hormones ever since puberty than men do. So we've really got to deal with them. And we've got about 7 phases where we're like, yep. And for many of us, that monthly phase, when we were in that, that's like this too. Week 1 and week 2, or week 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4, that's a roller coaster, and more significant for some of us than for others. So lucky you if you got out of that and that was a simpler time for you. That may also have meant that menopause was an easier ride, but not necessarily. But we're really talking about your endocrine system when we start to go through the other major change. So there's puberty, and then there's that finally we get to the other end and we're stopping. That's a major change, but it also continues to affect us for the rest of our lives. So don't be thinking, well, I'm 60 and that's way over, or I'm 70 and that's way over. You're still along a ride. We've still got cortisol, we've still got insulin, we still now have to consciously think about, do I have testosterone and growth hormone and all of the factors that come into play that help you increase your lean and decrease your body fat, stabilize your blood sugar, keep your bones, keep your muscles so that you have longevity, that you love. Those things, still your endocrine system to the rest of your life, till death do us part, right? We've got to be thinking about it. Your negative effects of stress, however, are amplified during midlife. So right now, you need some more TLC. You need to give it to you. Hopefully you're feeling it coming to you from other places too. 4 p.m. Pacific time yoga, maybe that's helpful, because we'll get to it in a minute. It'll help you stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system, and I'll talk to you about how easy it is for you to do that too, in addition to eating right and exercising right. But your negative effects of stress are going to affect your blood sugar levels. That may cause energy levels to go up and down, your mood to go up and down, your ability to focus, that brain fog to go up and down, your memory not to be as good. All of those can get complicated, but it also affects your ability to store fat. It's enhanced, right? Who knew you got in that line? But your storage of body fat and then your ability to burn fat is decreased because of that, because your body is kind of in this, I've got to protect you. I'm just going to hang on to this. We're going to pack a little on here and here and here and here, and then it'll be there if you need it, right? Nice, not so much, right? And it doesn't make us any healthier. Actually, especially if it's here, it's more risky for us, and it doesn't help our immune system. So we want to do everything we can to get off of that. If you stress your body, either by not helping yourself decrease your stress level with some exercise and increase that circulation that happens, that distributes all of the immune cells that you have. So circulation and getting your blood flow, delivering the oxygen is good, but it's also delivering your immune cells throughout your body. So that's why move. You also raise your core temperature. That's essentially, it's a little bit like a fever. Your body has a fever to create the ability to ward off and fight off infection. You can create little places during the day through exercise, even through drinking hot liquids. So I've had some for both of us today. It's a big mug, okay? But it elevates your core temperature a little bit. Having soup later in the day, using your sauna, being out in the sunshine if it's a warm day, all of those things that raise your core temperature, a hot bath can help improve your immune system. So all of those things will help, and you want to avoid too much, because too much is not helping distribute your immune cells. It's actually depleting them because you're trying to recover from exercise and you just can't keep up because there's already extra stress. When you are under stress, even emotional stress happens from up here, or maybe heart stress, broken heart, relationships not functioning really well. That depletes your immune system. Your body thinks you're exercising. So your normal state of exercise, what would normally a month ago or 2 months ago have been the best exercise prescription that I could give you, is too much today. We need to cut back. We need to kind of stop before we go to the edge of the cliff and feel like I could have done more. That is your perfect immune boosting strategy right now. So your fat stored in, or your toxins are stored in your fat. So if you've got fat storage toxins, essentially, your body will continue to hold on to them. And we want to get those toxins out as much as possible. We do that with increasing the fiber in your diet right now, increasing fibrous foods like broccoli and cauliflower will help you get rid of excess estrogen. And I know it may seem strange, you've got excess estrogen, we won't go down that hole, but if your stress level is up, your stress, that cortisol is blocking progesterone. So relative to it, your estrogen level is higher than it should be. You're what we call estrogen dominant. And you want to decrease that so you can bring that more into a balance. And we can do that by eliminating bad estrogens with an increased fiber diet. And those cruciferous vegetables will be very helpful for doing that. So next up, okay, so step 3 or part 3 is stress and exercise. So now we come back to, we've kind of tied it to your immune system. We've tied it to the endocrine system because we know that that has a lot to do with stress is cortisol. So we've been talking about stress all the way through, but the third piece of that is, okay, so how now do I deal with stress that happens from exercise? Because your body loves to be on the couch, just kind of reading a book and, you know, somebody feed me grapes and that would be awesome. It doesn't really like to exercise, right? So if you think of your body as ultimately lazy, any little exercise is stress. It's, you know, you're at rest, your heart rate beats X. Your circulatory system delivers blood easily, flowing here and there, no big deal. When you stand up, your body has to work a little harder. When you're walking, it has to work a little harder. When you're jogging or you're on your elliptical or on your exercise bike, you're breathing harder. It's got to work a little bit harder, right? So all that makes sense if you think about exercise is stress, and yet it's a beneficial kind of stress if it's done here. Relative to you in your sweet spot, that is not moderate exercise. So I want you to be careful about saying that. It's better said that this is the right exercise for you right now. And so flipping 50, there are 10 pieces to the creed for flipping 50. I just want to remind you of 2 of them. Number 1 is restore before more. So if you are already exhausted, you're already tired, the kinds of things you need to do, yes, you still need to move, but you want to go for a 10-minute walk, like with Truman I'm talking about. So you're stopping, you're smelling the roses. People are stopping to smell him because he's so cute. You're not really getting breathless, but you're moving. You're outdoors, you're in green space with trees and grass. All of those things help to decrease your stress level and therefore increase or improve your immune system, and those things matter. So it's looking for restore before more. That might mean stretching. It might mean you joining me at 4 p.m. for yoga is very appropriate for you right now, even if ordinarily you love to run several days a week, right? Or lift weights and do this and do that. You may need to cut back before you can go in, because if you've dug yourself in a hole where you're exhausted, you really want to curl up in a fetal position, suck your thumb, and have a blanket right now. I mean, who hasn't recently wanted a nap? I just want to go lay down. I don't want to think about anything else. I totally understand, and I can relate. So, you know, some of us who are online, we serve people virtually, we're actually a little bit more busy than we normally are. And we're trying to be here and give you good information, because there's a lot of counter and not so great information right now, because some are capitalizing on this in our vulnerable position. So I'm going to do a quick pause. Okay, so back to kind of stress and exercise. The restore before more is the first creed for flipping 50. The other one you want to remember is intense early and light late. So you don't want to be working hard or intensely, definitely after early to mid afternoon. So if you need to exercise, you know, at 12 or at 1, maybe 2 p.m., depending on what time you go to bed, okay, that could be your interval training or high intensity strength training, meaning to muscular fatigue. But otherwise, the later in the day that it is, the lighter it should be. even if, right, you were scheduled to do something more intense, because it's not going to be helpful for you. We need it to support you in calming down later in the day. Early in the day, ideally, you've got a little bit more cortisol, which is also your energy hormone. It's not only the bad guy in terms of stress hormone, but it gives you energy. So we want it to be high at certain times of day and lower or going down at other times of day. At 8 a.m., you should feel like, I'm ready to roll. It's 8:45 right now. So it's working, right? I would not want to do this. You would not want me to do this at 8:45 p.m. because I am in my pajamas, I am on the couch, I have my feet up, I'm relaxing, I'm getting ready to read a book and chill out and go to sleep. And, my energy level and the speed and rate that I talk is not going to be great, right? And you need to know that that's a piece of where you are too. About 60 to 90 minutes before you go to bed should be winding down. That's ideal. So intense early, light late. You cannot make it up, right? You can't catch up. If you were supposed to get a hard workout in and it's 5 p.m., you've got to let that go and say plan B is I am going to exercise. I'm just going to downshift and I'm going to do a lighter walk outdoors, or I am going to do yoga today, and tomorrow I'll do a better job of trying to fit it in and getting in even 10 or 15 or 20 minutes if doing longer early in the day is hard. Short bouts right now are a girl's best friend, a guy's too, because you need to know that because you're influencing other people as well. So even if you are an elite athlete, you're training for something that probably is a race not happening right now, but if you were training for something, you still would want to come back, because the more you deplete and even push thinking I'm training, I'm going to follow my training schedule, you would not want to do that. We've all got to come back. So if you're a midlife woman thinking that is so far from my reality, I just give you those points to illustrate that if that should happen for an elite athlete, it should definitely happen for us, because we're all dealing with other stressors in addition to the exercise. Exercise is an optimizer for your stress hormone. So the way we were meant to use and have stress is, it's like with a run from dinosaurs who are chasing us, right? Or we have to, which is silly because they're plant-based, but with a run from tigers, all right? So you're running from being dinner, or you're running to catch dinner. That was really the evolution of, that's our stress. Our fight or flight is literally that, all right? So that's activating a system that is like putting you into shoulders into our ears. Again, I'm really tense and I can't focus and can't sleep, and my monkey mind is spinning. All of those things, that's activation of what is called your sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. But with exercise, when it's done correctly, you're turning that on, and then exercise is over, and then you cool down. And because all of those muscles and all of that system was on and turned on, now it can shut off. And rarely in our life today, our contemporary living, do we let go of that chronic stress. Some of you find that harder than others. You may be watching and know, I am a worrier. And let me tell you, sister, that is not helping, right? That is a waste of time and energy. And it's a little bit of self-preservation. It is what you do so that you feel in control. It feels like a tangible thing that you need to do, and that if I do that, then I don't have to face the reality of the options or what might actually happen. So realize that, but realize that that worry is actually showing up as that's depleting your immune system. Many times there's a connection between the amount of colds and flus that somebody gets and the amount of worry that they do. So reduce the amount of time that you're worrying, find a substitute, whether that's yoga or meditation, or it's just a walk, pray kind of movement, and you will feel better, most likely suffer from fewer of those immune busting opportunities. So you gotta know who you are During times of stress, it's key that you're doing less than you're used to for those exercise enthusiasts, and more than you were doing if you were sedentary. We all need to be moving. So you want to move into kind of a sweet spot if you haven't been moving at all. Great ways to start would be just 10 minutes of anything. 10 minutes once or twice a day, and kind of splitting it. So you might go for a 10-minute walk this morning. You might go for another 10-minute walk early evening or afternoon. It doesn't matter where it is because they're both going to be light. You're just working on a cumulative effect of moving. Now, for the rest of us, walking alone at a low level is really not exercise. I want to point that out to you. So I want to jump over here to this. So as we're talking too little, too much, what are we talking about? So I want to bring it to this. This is something we do in our members area. And today I'm jumping into our members area, kind of following this with a worksheet. So we're actually going to kind of sit down with each one of them and look at, what are the key things we're looking at. We're looking at the quality of sleep. We're looking at the quality of exercise. We're looking at the quality of nutrition. What do we need to focus on? By what's our rating for that? How well are we doing with digestion and elimination? Because all of those factors will get off if you're not in that sweet spot for exercise. And if we can get all those in alignment, your immune system is boosted, and that's where we want to be. But I want you to pay attention to this. So we use zones because you can tell me, okay, I feel like I'm in this zone. I don't need to know your heart rate. And unless I've put you on a treadmill or I've put you on an exercise bike and I've hooked you up to heart rate monitor and I've watched at every level that I take you to what happens to your heart rate, your breathlessness, and I know that response is typical for you, I cannot tell you based on your heart rate how you're doing. Because my heart rate and yours, if we're the exact same age and gender, may be very different, all right? So for most women over 40, most adults over 40, period, those predicted heart rate recommendations, whether you're going to Orange Theory, you're going to MyZone training that occurs in some gym or did, now that you can't, unless you've been tested, they're wrong, potentially. You've got to read them as wrong, unless you're that one anomaly who is the average, because most of us are either above or too low or too high. How you feel never lies. So you can tell me this, but your level 1, we call it zone 1, zone 2, 3, 4, and 5. We got 5 exercise zones. Zone 1 is really your all-day activity, like you're cleaning your house all day, right? You're probably not breathless, maybe if you're going up and down stairs occasionally, but no more than if you were going upstairs to go to bed or coming downstairs to take a shower or get breakfast. It's all-day activity. You just are moving and doing it because it's daily activities of life. We don't actually call that exercise. Right now, your life should be heavily dictated by movement. Move more, exercise less. Move more, exercise less. So if you've read You Still Got It, Girl, that is completely another creed. We exercise less. We do it with more purpose. When we do it, we know exactly what we're doing, but it's not exercise in moderation. We've got to kill that term because it's dangerous for us right now. All right. So movement is zone 1, all right? Just moving all day. That's the bottom of the pyramid. And why? Because in pyramids, as we know, what we want is more of this. That's our foundation. If you don't have that foundation, it's why these people right here, if you're doing too little right now and you're watching, or you are watching and I'm preaching to the choir, you're going to share this with your friends. If you really want to do everybody some favors during this COVID-19 right now, don't just watch and take it in, share this, because the world needs this information to get better. It's like everybody wearing their mask. You can do a part by sitting back and watching, or you can do a bigger part by sharing it with others. All right, so movement 1, we've got to have this foundation. So too little, I would not suggest you go and do interval training, working at zone 5 and then doing that regularly, not yet. Okay, start and build a foundation first, and then soon we can get you doing interval training, because everybody can do interval training. if you know someone or have with emphysema, COPD, asthma, those clients and or patients, not of mine, but of doctors, do best with interval training because that's simply how they do best. We don't take them to the edge. We stop them right before they would get there so that they are symptom-free or asymptomatic. And they do best with those little bouts and back and forth when there are pollens in the air and allergies are greater, depending on whether the asthma is due to allergies or just something else. So all of those things come into factor, all right? So too little, we've got to start here with a huge base. What's zone 2? Zone 2 is your endurance training. So that's where you should be able to go out, sustain a level like that, same intensity level, and just kind of hit cruise and be on that level for, 45 minutes to an hour, no big deal. At least that cusp. Now, if you start doing more than that, if you start doing like 75 minutes or more, you're going to elevate your cortisol level, even though that's a fairly comfortable rate. Cortisol levels will go up. And that's unless you're an elite athlete and you're used to training at that point and you can do more. But that's not the majority of us, and that's not something to strive for right now. We're in this point where we need your race right now, your event. The thing you're training for is best immunity ever. That's winning for all of us. But here's the great news. If that's your focus, chances are your hormones may be more balanced when you come out of this COVID-19 than they ever have been, because you won't be trying to override, oh no, I thought I needed more exercise. I thought it was more exercise and less food, and I thought that that's what was weight loss. And it's not, right? But it's taking a long time potentially to get that message through, because we've had 30 or 40 years of conditioning, putting that into your heads. I've taught that. In the very beginning, that's what we all thought was true. We've learned so much in the last 36. This is number 36 as far as years go for me, but it's drastically different than what we learned. And there's a catch up that has to happen. You're still seeing and hearing and reading wrong messages because textbook, certification exams, and books for personal trainers and health coaches have not completely caught up yet. So you've got to really know who's using current science, like of the last 5 and 10 years, maybe 10 years, but of the last 5 years. And when you go back, you'll find there are few and far between studies that are actually older than that, but they just didn't get enough levity with enough fitness professionals, researchers to actually grow the research fast enough, and they didn't get in mainstream, and it takes time. So if you ever published a book or a textbook with a major company, the book is written and then it's 4 years before it's ever published. So in that 4 years, as things started to go boom, we got to study this midlife population. We've got to study these women. There are more studies now than there were, but they didn't make it into that book, right? So you've got to really be asking somebody who's training you or a program that you're doing. So just FYI, shameless plug, the only research we do use here is based on women in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. You are the subjects, and that's really the only direct correlation we can make. So 2, endurance training. Yes, you need to do some, but not all. If that's all you're doing, we need to make sure you're using those other systems. So you tend to, maybe you do 1 or 2 endurance sessions a week, depending on who you are. I have genetics that predispose me for being in a better fitness level, easier and faster if I do endurance training. You may not. That may not be your genetic makeup, and you probably already know that. If you hate endurance, but you love strength training and you love to do short, you were the person who did the 50-yard dash and loved it. Or maybe you would love to do short interval training and then back off, and you really like that, love the way it feels, but you hate endurance. that probably tells me that you are the opposite. You do better with anaerobic activity. So proportionately in your fitness plan, you should do more of that. A little bit more interval training, a little bit less endurance training. And counter to that, I would want to do more endurance training because that's my genetic makeup, and I knew it, right? Because I love that more. But I can't overdo that. I still have to push the limits and get that interval training, because ultimately that'll make me more fit even, and do that anaerobic work with strength training. And if we're going to hold on to muscle and bone as we age, we've all got to do that. Okay, so number 3 is kind of right in the middle, and I'm going to skip that for a minute and we'll come back to it because that's where we're going to land. 4 and 5. So 4 is where you're doing interval training. That is where you do it for a short period of time. You can only maintain maybe level 4. You can maintain for maybe up a minute, minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. And you're doing those slightly longer intervals, which length is relative, right? So a minute and a half, 2 minutes, that's a fairly long interval. Level 5 is you're like sprinting to the end of a finish line. You're not going to look at your heart rate and say, am I working too hard? You're just going to go, right? You're going to cross that finish line, and that's where you have that burst of go, all out, leave it out there because it's over after this point. That and super high intensity intervals where you're only doing 20 or 30 seconds long, because we can't sustain that level for very long. That is where we are very interested in knowing how much more time do I have to do this for? And we can't talk. We're looking at the clock and looking at the seconds. So when you do interval training and you're up at these during those short terms, you have to remember that you're also back down to this level 1, just movement to recover, and almost even here sometimes barely moving in order to recover. So it's alternating these and this much less time than this. And relative, they can be 1-to-1, but that's pretty advanced. Or it's, you know, I do this once and then I do this like 3 times or at least twice as much. So if I were doing an interval of 1 minute, I would recover for 2 minutes. If I were doing an interval of 30 seconds, I would recover for a minute or more. Often the best rule of thumb, okay? So we need to do all of those. And yet, this is the one I ignored, right? Because it's known as level 3 or zone 3, NBZ, called no benefits zone. This is beneficial movement to decreasing your stress level, your cortisol levels, boosting your immune system. This is, provided it's done, not a lot, not often, but sometimes during your week. So planned on purpose, 1 or 2 sessions may be okay, especially if you have an endurance skewed system. And these are very beneficial to use that fight or flight and then let yourself recover so you can use that parasympathetic nervous system. But this is actually just in the middle where you're creating more stress, more decrease in the immune system, not more benefit. So huge, and I want to talk a little bit to you about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, last but not least, so here it is. So what happens when we're stressed in the exercise and the difference? So what's involved in your autonomic nervous system is basically like it sounds, your body just reacts. So fight or flight, when you get hit with a stressor, you're driving in your car and another car pulls out in front of you, that moment when you go, that fight or flight just went off in your body. You don't have to think about it. You just are. It's like, okay, now I realize I'm stressed. Like my shoulders are in my ears. Or you're walking outside and maybe you slip on ice. That can be a little stressor because suddenly you're like, oh, that was close, right? Little things like that and big things also, right? So this COVID thing settling in, and you may go through waves where it's like, okay, we're all in this together. It's okay. Everybody else is having to deal with this too. Right now I have food I need, I have shelter, I have heat or coolness, if, depending, and we're all okay. You know, so you may feel like, okay, I can kick in that parasympathetic nervous system, which is more logic. That doesn't happen as automatically. You need to turn it on. And the more you turn on that parasympathetic nervous system, the less that sympathetic fight or flight goes on. So when your fight or flight goes on, that's your sympathetic. It's kind of like, you've heard that saying, you know, the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing. And actually that could be your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems working together. So what we need for the parasympathetic nervous system, we want to turn that on, because that is where we can digest our food better. There are two terms used to describe what can happen there and what we need, why we need to turn it on so that we can get those things to happen. And it's called feed or breed. So number one, if you are eating and you're tense and you're tight, maybe you're eating with somebody that really, you know, sets off all of your stress levels. You don't like them, whatever's happening, you're having a conflict while you're eating, you're not eating with all of the proper things in place so that you can actually digest. So feeding happens and you may have less of an appetite, or you may have too much if you've got those fight or flight stressors on. And breed is the other one. So it's pretty common that during high stress situations that it's more difficult for women to get pregnant, you know, and for men tend to, you know, have problems, or there's lower semen, there's not as much fertility when you're in that stress, because your body is like, okay, well, I need to like pull all my focus over here. I've got to deal with this stressor. So, you know, anything lesser important to my survival, I'm not going to pay attention to. So that's it. So it's feed or breed. That happens. But the one we hear most often is rest and digest. So in order for you to actually rest and recover, so if you're feeling exhausted a lot right now, or you're thinking, I'm always tired in this moment that I'm in, you may be in that fight or flight more, even if it's not like at that, put the brake on, oh my gosh, I have to stop my car. Even if it's still that chronic stressor that you're feeling, you may spend more time there, even if you would say, well, I don't feel stress. I don't like feel like I'm gonna claw somebody's eyes out, right? But you could still easily be there given all that's going on in the world. And that's not to say you have to be. So I wanna make that clear. So I know over and over you may be checking into different places and you're hearing different messages that say, you know, we're all stressed right now. I want you to let that go right out the other. We don't all have to be, all right? There are silver linings. So you've got to focus on those gratitude things that are happening now because of this, that, you know, this is such an opportunity to think about, what did I not love about my life in the way I did it, the way I did life then, that this moment is giving me a chance to actually look at that, realize what's important to me, and whether or not I'm spending the greatest percentage of my time doing what is important to me, or with what is important to me, so that you can change things as we come out of this, because it won't last forever. Things will be changed, but potentially they could also be changed in a very good way. So I want you to realize that when you hear over and over again some negative pieces, realize that that's a choice to take them in like that. You're in control. And I want to ask you something. Did you notice what just happened to my voice? So when I was talking about stress, when I was talking about the immune system, faster, harder, right? Now when we're talking about what's the good thing here, my voice got calmer. You can do the same thing with your voice. You can do the same thing in conversations with other people and with what's going in here. As you just slow it down, slow the tone or slow the rate of speech, change the tone so it's a little bit more calm and even and neutral and not so high-pitched, right? All of those things can help you tremendously. But that rest and digest, super important so that you can get better sleep. You can just feel when you sit down that you can take it in. You can take that moment, that if you're tuning into doing yoga with me, that you're actually just in that moment. You're just doing it. You're just moving, paying attention to the breath, to the movement, and to the release that happens from it. You're not doing anything else during that moment. That can be helpful. Okay. So the other piece of that rest and digest is digest. So if we don't calm ourselves down, take a deep breath right before we eat, and I'll come back to that, we don't have the right digestive enzymes. So if you're noticing that you're not digesting as well, you're gassy, you're bloated, you're constipated, or you have diarrhea, you potentially are needing to pay a little bit more attention to turning on your parasympathetic nervous system. So some simple and easy ways to do it, and I'll link to in each one of these how they might tie back to exercise actually. So simple ways, we call this stimulating your vagus nerve, because your vagus nerve actually controls parasympathetic nervous system. So deep and rhythmic breathing. What is happening when you exercise? Deep and rhythmic breathing. But you can also just practice it. Just take 2 minutes to take deep breaths in through your nose, exhale through your mouth, and do that right before you eat every single meal. Even right before you have a cup of mashta or a cup of tea, helping yourself decrease sympathetic and turn on your parasympathetic will help you take that in and let it do more good. But when you're bicycling, you're walking, you're running, definitely any of those major muscle group activities that are more rhythmic in nature, this wouldn't apply as much to high intensity interval training. Right? But deep breathing, that's very rhythmic. That's also what happens during yoga. Okay, humming. So simply humming, or it makes me think of my grandmother. So I remember going to church with her when I was a little girl, and she didn't really sing, she hummed. Okay, flashback. And speaking and singing. So the same thing. Humming, speaking, singing, they stimulate your vocal cords, which helps to stimulate the vagus nerve. So talking, obviously not screaming, right, in a controlled manner. Speaking, and if you sing, even if you sing badly, but you like it, do that, right? Washing your face with cold water. And there is not a lot of research out there on why that is true, but washing your face in cold water can really stimulate your vagus nerve and turn on that parasympathetic nervous system. So try that when you're washing your face. Splash it with cold water, which is, we've all heard that's a good thing to do anyway. Meditation is another one. And in our membership, I've shared a couple of things that you may want to do. There's some great apps out there that are free and or, just a few dollars if you want to upgrade. But doing a little bit of meditation, even if it's just a walk and pray that you do on your own, or yesterday when people tuned into yoga with me, I inhaled and asked you to think about something that you are grateful for. So focusing on those kinds of things, and then exhaling and release. And lastly is balancing your gut. So if you're feeling indigestion, you've got stings right here, you want to get some probiotics in there with live cultures. Make sure you're not eating foods that upset you. So there you go. I'll see you on the flip side. And I'm going to put this, we'll keep it right here for all of our email subscribers. I'm also going to download this and make sure that it's available for you to watch. I'm going to do a podcast on Tuesday that goes through again. So if, listening the second time is helpful to you, so this picture will also be inside the podcast show notes so that you have both to use. But I highly recommend listening again, because I think it will be really helpful right now in this moment we're in to focus on exercise, connection with stress and your immune system in midlife when you've got hormones also going on. But bottom line here is, if you do the things that will help you focus on your immune system right now, you may come out of this with more balanced hormones, because your antenna is up a little bit more. You're actually listening so much easier to, this has got to be my priority right now. and many of the things that you're doing to kind of come to the other side that maybe you put off or thought, I've got time to do this. We know we don't have time to do it. We know the time is right now. You may be in much better shape, quote unquote, pun intended, after COVID than you were coming into it. So, all right, thanks for joining me, everybody. Flora, Jennifer, Linda, Marsha, good morning to you too. And Cindy, Linda, and Linda must have been a popular name at that point, right? And Barb. So thanks so much. Thanks also for sharing it, adding comments later. Super beneficial, hopefully to every woman that you know. Shoot it to them, maybe even potentially to athletes that you know. So I keep reading these, here's why I can train harder right now. And I'm like, we don't need to train harder right now. We need to train smarter, because that is like wearing the mask. It protects you, but it also protects other people. So you are welcome. Hey, Lori, good morning. Hey, Kelly, you're so welcome. And cafe members, so for those of you that were here, I'm going to jump over with you, and I've got a worksheet just for planning's sake. So I'm not going to jump on right now. Now I've got to get out and get my my own little fix before it gets too late in the day. So intense early, late. So I'm about to do that, and then at some point today, I'm going to jump in, and I've got a worksheet that I'm going to put in files over in our membership private Facebook group for all of you, so that you can kind of assess, where am I right now, just tuning into different things, and then I can help you plan live. All right, have a great day, everybody.